I decided to do an eyeshadow inventory or like an eyeshadow collection video because I realized I haven't done this in quite a few years. And when I was skimming through that video, I realized the vast majority of the palettes I own now are not the same ones that I had in that video. So I figured it was time for a refresh. You can sort of see the majority of the eyeshadow palettes that I have in frame now, but I am going to move them off camera and kind of focus on a couple palettes at a time. And yeah, just a chance to like show my palettes maybe more up close. A lot of them are very well loved, and kind of just talk about my thoughts on them and what I like about them, maybe what I don't like about them. Let's talk about these ones because they're all of my Colourpop palettes. I own quite a few. This is like the brand that I own the most eyeshadows from, with the exception of this Limoncello one because the sizes of the pans are different. They're much wider than the other palettes. The other ones, they're all magnetic. They can be easily removed with a magnet and then switched around. So a lot of the original shades have been moved around over the years, maybe even decluttered. I did have the It's My Pleasure palette from Colourpop for a bit, and so some of those shades from that palette are probably still in here. And so I guess you can sort of see the general color story of each original palette, but I can't say for certain which shades belong to which palette anymore. So I'll start with this one, Limoncello. This is a really beautiful one. I do have one pan because it was in my Pan Those Eyeshadows project last year. And this is a really warm color story, but I do really like it. I mean, I love the packaging. I've mentioned that in an eyeshadow tag video that I did a while ago, why this is like so special to me packaging wise. They're much brighter and more vivid, I guess, on the eyes than you would think looking at the palette right away, but it's beautiful, very springy, summery, and I'm glad I own it. So these three here are kind of like cardboard packaging, and then this one here, the Go and Coconuts packaging, is like a really hard plastic, and the lettering is starting to wear off, and a lot of times, I don't know how to explain it, there's nothing underneath this top plate here, and so the shadows can kind of move around and get shoved underneath like that. Can you see that there? And so they're not very like steady in there, so sometimes when I'm going in with my finger, it moves them around and I don't pick up product the way I would like to. And so I think eventually I'm gonna wanna like go through and either declutter or use up, finish some of these shades, maybe move them into a Z palette or something, and get rid of this plastic packaging altogether because I don't really like it very much. I prefer the cardboard packaging for sure. It just feels a lot more stable in there. I think this shade here from the Making Mauves palette, I'm pretty sure that's a Super Shock Shadow, so that's probably gonna dry up before I get a chance to finish it. Let me say what the palettes are first, huh? So I have the All That palette. This is kind of like a red burgundy color story for the most part. It's beautiful. I love having this sort of colors in my collection. I don't wear a ton of reds, but whenever I do, I want to get it right, and I feel like with these shades I can. The Flutter By and the Making Mauves palette are both kind of like mauvey, purpley palettes. That reflective packaging is probably making it hard to see the colors for what they are, but I like both of these. I just default to light pinks, champagnes, you know, mauve colors like that, so it's really nice to have these sorts of shades, and I like them. I think they're beautiful. Especially this shade right here, the standout shade for me in this palette is by Coastal. It's a stunning, super shimmery, metallic, I guess like a silvery pink. Beautiful. And then this one, I would say the standout shade is Sunflare. I don't know if that's actually the original shade or not, but it's really unique and pretty. I can do a little bit of swatching. Not like overboard, but just a little bit. It's like a very, very cool tone pink, but if you can see, it's got a little bit of like a blue pink shift. Stunning. And then I guess Bi-Coastal is not going to be that different. It's also a super metallic color, but it's definitely just more of like a traditional silvery pink. I like the differences in the mattes. You can really easily build a color starting from lightest to darkest, etc. And yeah, these are nice. I would say the standout shade for me from the All That palette, probably these dark burgundies, just because they're very unique in my collection. So I'm going to swatch these for you. This is Silhouette. This middle one is Silhouette, and then this one is Please Me. They're really beautiful and help me build more sultry, deep red eye colors. And then obviously from the Gone Coconuts palette, this center one, Cocoa Crush, this is like a cult favorite. This is probably one of the most metallic eyeshadows that I own. And this stands out. I hear lots of people talk about this all the time. Beautiful. This shade here is not original to the Gone Coconuts palette. It's from the It's My Pleasure palette. I'm almost positive it's called Mr. Sandman, and this is kind of like a duochrome. It's not as metallic or in your face as the other ones, but it has a really beautiful deeper purple base, kind of a little bit of red in there, and then like a light blue shift. Really pretty too. And I love pairing that shade with burgundy mattes in particular. Even though the majority of my eyeshadow palettes are from Colourpop, I don't really have anything else from that brand necessarily that I would want to buy. So I think this is just gonna have to be good enough for now. And eventually I would like to figure out a way to work out this plastic packaging just because I'm not a fan of it. Now let's talk about one of my favorite eyeshadow formulas and a brand that I would have no problem purchasing more palettes from, and that's Shroud Cosmetics. I have three. The Creepy Cute, which is one of my oldest palettes, one of my most used palettes. Arcana, which is one of my newer palettes in my collection, and then It's Freaking Bats, which is also a staple. These are all beautiful. These are like where I go to when I want something colorful, something unique, something that has a lot of impact. And that's because these are just very pigmented and unique color stories, and as I open them you can see what I mean. A lot of these are deeper except for the Creepy Cute one, which is all pastels, and you can see, I mean, I have so many pans in the Creepy Cute one alone. I love this. I love using it to start more colorful looks, or maybe I want color but I don't want it to be too colorful, like maybe I just want a little hint. I can reach for these colors. And then these definitely help me with my looks to kind of make them a little bit deeper. And these are stunning. I don't use Arcana enough. And I do have pan in one shade in the It's Friggin' Bats palette because this was in my Pan Those Eyeshadows project last year. And I had pan on it and it's beautiful. I do have a 3 Looks 1 palette video with this, and then I do have a Shroud Cosmetics eyeshadow bingo video where I randomly generated a bunch of shades from these palettes. I wanted Arcana for the longest time. I even tried to dupe it with shadows that were already in my collection, and I still ended up buying it when it was on sale. I love these colors. Yes, I don't reach for it all the time because I'm not always going for such dark, deep colors, but they are just so unique. I'm gonna have to make more room. Maybe I'll swatch them on my arm now. Like, I don't even know which ones to swatch because the ones from the Arcana palette are just so unique to my collection. They're so beautiful. So I'm gonna swatch a couple. Definitely Chalice. This is like a chartreuse color. Like, they're smooth, they're creamy, and they're super pigmented. And I'm probably gonna repeat myself a ton, but definitely can be said for these shades in particular. This Alchemy color, really, really pretty. For having like a deeper blackened base, it still definitely does have that green effect. Like, you can absolutely tell it's a green. It doesn't kind of like wear away into nothing or blend out into like a gray color. Mystic here, beautiful, strong. Would you call this like a cobalt blue or maybe like a royal blue? I'm not sure. Again, it does have that deeper base, but it still shows that blue really beautifully. Shroud is a matte I will swatch. I mean, it's probably not the strongest swatch, but also I'm swatching it with my thumb, which is kind of weird, but gorgeous, beautiful. And then lastly, I'm gonna swatch Darkling, which is a super, super dark matte forest green. And I showed this in this and Alchemy. I showed those two greens in a green swatch party video. And so I compared it to other matte dark greens that I have in my collection. Okay, I went and washed off some of the swatches and washed off my hands so that I could do more swatches. Also a really big fan of the It's Freaking Bats palette. These are all, again, super unique shades to my collection. I can't choose a favorite. Truly, I can't. I love Trappa. That's such a beautiful, unique green. I also really like Zero. This is a duochrome, and it's like a light blue purple duochrome. But Sam is also really beautiful. This is a super light green metallic, almost silvery, but still manages to have some sort of warmth to it. Really pretty. And then Apparition, this is a light purple with a silvery, it still has some gold. It's like a light pale white gold shift. Love it. And I love that there is a mixture of lighter mid-tone shimmer shades plus dark mattes. And so I feel like I can create a lot of really cool looks with those. And you know, I could just reach in for one and it'll make my look really unique and special, or I can use all of them and still build a really nice look too. And again, I do have a 3 Looks 1 palette with that palette in particular. Creepy Cute, an old fave. I have had it for several years. I think I bought it right at the beginning of 2019 or right at the end of 2018. And because these are pastels, they're not going to show up nearly as pigmented as the other colors, but they definitely pack a punch. If you can see that, I just swatched Creep It Real. I really like Third Eye. There was a period where I was mixing that with like burgundy mattes all the time, and that was such a stunning combination. Tombstone was in my Pan Those Eyeshadows project. In fact, a couple of these were. I think Planchette and Strawberry Milk were also in one of my first Pan Those Eyeshadows videos. And so, I mean, yeah, some of the pan is because of that, but also they are just really easy to reach for to build a look. And for Tombstone in particular, I loved wearing this as a base and then putting shimmery shades or duochromes or multi-chromes on top of it. And I think that really helped it pop without it being too dark for my eyes. Love these. These are palettes that I'm just like genuinely happy I purchased. And I will always keep an eye out for the palettes that Shroud Cosmetics comes out with because there's a very high chance that I will purchase them or at least want to try them. Next, let's pull out my 2 ABH palettes. I have the Sultry and the Soft Glam Mini, and these are both very used and abused. Tons of pans. I've used up 2 eyeshadows, 1 in each. Both of them were just cream matte shades that I used to set my eyeshadow primer, but they were really nice. These are palettes that I have used a ton, and if I were to consider doing a pan that palette in the future, I would probably choose from one of these. Though I am really surprised there is a big difference in the mattes between these 2 palettes. I find that the ones from the Sultry palette are much more powdery, a lot softer. These ones, they still blend beautifully, they work well, but they are very much more tightly pressed. For example, Orange Soda here, I've used like 40 to 50 times. Like, I've used that a lot. And there's a dent in there, but I'm nowhere near hitting pan, versus some of these I hit pan after like 20 to 30 uses. So there is something slightly different in the way that these are pressed, but they all perform really nicely. And I mean, obviously if I had to choose one that I liked more, it would be Sultry, just because the colors are nicer and they just have more variety in the shimmer shades, and they're just a little bit more unique with these like silvers and this pink here and these different types of undertones in these shimmer shades, like the bronzes and the golds and stuff. This one, obviously, it's more compact, it has fewer shades, and it's based on the Soft Glam palette from this collection, and so the colors are more similar to that, which is a little bit more of like a neutral, soft color story. And I never really thought about it until recently, but the Sultry palette, like when we think of the names and the choices for everything, it doesn't make sense to me. Like when I think of a Sultry palette and it has this sort of color packaging and everything, when you open it and you look at the shade names, cyborg, steampunk, like those don't seem sultry to me. Like I almost feel like they had a certain type of palette they were going to come out with and they had all the names and everything ready, and then they switched the name of it last minute, because like sultry and like steampunk just don't really mix well with me. I've never heard anybody else mention that, but it kind of just occurred to me recently, like, why? Not saying I don't like it, it's not necessarily like a bad thing, it just like doesn't really make a ton of sense to me from like a creative or even like a marketing standpoint. Anyway, these are both nice and I'm glad I have both of them. In my last video like this, I had the Modern Renaissance. That was also a super well-loved palette. I had pan in every shade before I eventually decluttered it because it was just getting too old. And yeah, these are nice. These are kind of like workhorse palettes in my collection. Another workhorse is this one from Too Faced. It's the Natural Nudes Born This Way palette, and I have talked about this before. I really like this palette. Let me bring it a little bit closer to you. There we go. I'm filming like technically upside down, so I'm not really sure. Anyway, I really love how this is set up. I've used this a ton. I like that it's like lighter to darker. There's a matte and a shimmery counterpart to every shade that they have in here. This again is a palette that I can create beautiful looks with on its own, or I can use some of these shades to help build other eyeshadow looks from other palettes. And this is a staple, again, another workhorse, and I'm glad I have it. I'm gonna talk about a couple more like indie palettes that I have. They're all from different brands, but they are more unique brands, unique color stories, etc. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the Juicy Olive. This is from Give Me Glow, and I really love this. I featured all of these shades in that eyeshadow, that green eyeshadow swatch party video I did. I love this palette. It's beautiful, and I'm really glad I have it. This one here from Geology Cosmetics. This was in my most recent Pan Those Eyeshadows project. It was also my finale because it was one of the last shades I worked on, and I was working on the shade Chert here. Chert, for some reason, I don't know what is in the formula, but like as I used it more, it got more hard pressed, and it kind of just got harder to pick up product over time. But all the other shades are beautiful. I love this palette, and I just saw, because I follow Geology on like Facebook and Instagram and stuff, they have another palette coming out, I'm pretty sure. And so I'm really interested to see what they come out with moving forward. They're a relatively new brand, and they're based in Australia. Beautiful colors. I love this Starry Sky shade here. This one, it has a clear base pretty much, and then a beautiful green reflect. Super sparkly and pretty. Love that color. This shade here, Spinifex. This is really unique too. It has an orange base and then a lime green shift. And then Chalcopyrite, it looks like it's going to be more olive green in the pan, but when you swatch it, it's very much just like a mustardy, yellowy green. Really pretty. Love this for fall looks. Love it for more earthy tones. And then this one here is a custom palette that I made, and these are all singles from Lethal Cosmetics. And I only got one matte shade. Really, I wanted to try the multi-chromes, the duochromes, etc. I have a whole video where I swatched all of these shades, and I talked about them all in great detail, and I really love it. In fact, I was actually on the Lethal website yesterday, the day before yesterday, making another 12 pan palette. I don't think I'm gonna buy it anytime soon. I might wait till they have their next sale, but they just they always keep coming out with new shades, and I want to get them. So there is a chance I would get another palette like this in the future. These are really pricey. I think even with free shipping and with the sale that I had, I think I got like 20% off. This still came out to be like 90 something dollars, so it's not cheap, but these are very, very unique, beautiful colors. This one here, I'm pretty sure this one's called Retrograde. It is a multi-chrome, and I don't know if my swatch and my color setup is gonna do this justice. I think the green is pulling the most, but from my perspective, I'm getting a lot of the purple. Let me see if I can, is that helping you see a different perspective? I think that's helping you see the purple a little bit better, and it's just beautiful. There's like 5 different colors in there. Stunning. If you have any Lethal Cosmetics singles that you have that you think are super unique, super beautiful, that I would like, please let me know in the comments, because there is a chance sometime in the future, probably in the far future, not immediately, where I will most likely purchase another palette. And I didn't swatch anything from the Juicy Olive palette, so I'm going to do that now. I'll swatch these top 2 shades because they are incredibly unique. These are all gorgeous colors in their own right. But that is Garnish, super neon chartreuse color, and then Dry Martini, which is a lighter matte green. All right, let's look at my singles. They're not technically palettes, but I do try to organize them as if they were palettes. These are 8 Sydney Grace singles, so I'm going to put these to the side and talk about them with my other Sydney Grace palette that I have, just so I kind of have them all within one brand. And then these are a bunch of different singles from different brands. So I have a mix of ABH, Colourpop, Cleona. I have one Essence single. I have a couple Give Me Glow singles, Makeup Geek, and maybe some Tarte singles as well. Unfortunately, when I was pulling my shadows out, I noticed that one of the eyeshadows had fallen out of the pan. Let's see if I can somehow salvage this. This is not the first time that I've had to do this. Not the first time that I've had to like push the shade Clairvoyance from Cliona back into its pan. It's incredibly soft, but it is a stunning color. It's got this really light turquoise base, and then it has a gold, greeny gold reflect. It's really, really pretty. And so I'm just gonna do my best to try to shove it back in the pan, press it a little bit harder, and then yeah, just figure out a way to keep that a little bit safer. The Cliona shades, they are stunning. They are a little bit more fragile. I imagine it's just because the amount of pigment that is used to make them. I'm not sure, but this color is beautiful and special enough to me to keep it, even if it is a little bit more, something I need to be a little bit more careful with. And then this is also a Cliona single that I don't think they make anymore. It's Emerald, and I have also dropped this a couple of times and it's broken, and there's only like half of the product left in that pan. Even though it is a larger pan, there's only half of it left just because of the amount of times that I've like dropped it and broken it. And then these two colors here, I'm gonna have to tone it down with the number of things that I swatched just because there's a ton of shadows here, but these two are from Give Me Glow again. This is Blue Jeans, and this is Pretty Little Lilac. And I use Blue Jeans as a nail polish pretty often because that's a really beautiful color, and something in the formula makes it really easy to apply as nail polish. I'm pretty sure Rebecca Morgan has a video where she shows how she uses nail polishes, or uses eyeshadows as nail polish, and so if I can find that was from a while ago, but if I can find it, I'll link it below because I learned it from her, so the style and the way that she does it is the way that I do it as well. And these are so pretty, so metallic, and the eyeshadow pans are enormous. Like there's no way I would go through these, but I am still really glad to have them, and I often have to fight the urge to buy more just because that's so much eyeshadow. I don't need them to be that big. This Essence single here, this is kind of like a Super Shock shadow where I don't think it's fully powder, and it's dried up a tiny bit since I last purchased it, but it still works really, really well. Even though it has dried up a tiny bit since I first purchased it, it still performs really beautifully. It's a really gorgeous taupey pink color, and so I'm glad I have it. I don't really remember to reach for these singles very often, but a lot of brands are coming out with really unique singles that are in their own packaging like this, and I'm tempted. So this might be something that I try more of from other brands in the future. Again, if you have any recommendations, please let me know. Then in here, I don't really have them set up by brand. It's kind of just like a weird mixture, and I'm moving them around all the time. I'm gonna swatch some of my Cliona singles because those are the more like special ones in my collection. So let me pull those out really quickly. Yeah, so these are all of my singles. I'm going to swatch these ones because they're very unique and pretty. This was a free gift with purchase, and I think this is one of their multi-chromes, and this is in the shade Ripple. This is super chunky, but it's gorgeous. I love pairing this with like a mauve matte shade underneath it. Then we have Aqua Vitae, which I just wore a couple of times last week. And this has a light blue base and then an antique yellow gold shift. And I wore this kind of like for a spotlight eye, and it was so pretty. I love this color. It's kind of like a unexpected favorite. Then Morgana here. This is kind of like a Christmas green. I think it's just a regular metallic from their line, but I really like this color a lot. It's beautiful. And then this one here, this is Arcana, and this one has kind of like a light purple base and then a light blue shift, and it's more subtle, but it's beautiful. It reminds me a lot of Glass Bowl. In fact, I have Glass Bowl, so I'm gonna swatch them side by side. This is Glass Bowl from Colourpop. The formula is slightly different. I would say Arcana is smoother, and the base for Glass Bowl is a little bit more reddish versus Arcana is a little bit more purpley. And then the shift in Glass Bowl is slightly more green, while the shade from Cliona is a little bit more of just like a light icy blue. So they're super similar, but they're not exactly the same. And then the last one is a favorite. This is gorgeous shade. A lot of brands create shades like this, but this is the one I have and I love it. I love pairing this with burgundy shades and dark purples, and this is the shade Prophecy. And this has a pinky red base and then a yellow gold orange shift, and it is beautiful. I don't really purchase singles anymore that have to be put in a Z palette or something like that, only because I don't tend to reach for those very often. I did pull my singles out in my everyday makeup drawer most recently to make an effort to reach for them more, and I did, and I fell back in love with them. But when I buy singles from now on, or for the most part, I can't speak like in exact terms, but I think I'm going to purchase them with the ability to put them in a palette. So for example, the Lethal Cosmetics singles, you can buy a palette to put those in. I think I might do that from now on. There are a lot of single shades and a lot of brands out there I'd love to try. I would love to try the Terra Moon singles, for example, but I just need to be smart about it and realize I already have some really, really stunning singles in my collection. The next palette I want to pull out is a Quad from Charlotte Tilbury. This is something that I'm currently trying to pan, so this is a little sneak peek. You likely saw this in my most recent Project Pan update as well, because I'm incorporating this Pan That Quad into that video. And so I would like to eventually finish this. I'm really liking it. These shades are very simple, very easy to wear, easy to throw on. They're super blendable and pretty, and so I can wear them on their own for like a really simple look, or I can use them with other palettes too. So this was a really great choice for me personally to try to pan. Once I pan it, I likely won't feel the compulsion to run out and purchase another one of these. They're like $50-something, and I got this in a mystery box. And I am glad I tried it, I'm glad I have it, but I can't really say for certain that this is like worth the hefty price tag. One that I would say is worth the hefty price tag, at least for me personally, is the Rose Quartz palette from Huda Beauty. And this is the only Huda Beauty palette that I own, but this is the only color story that really speaks to me. These came out as a holiday palette. I'm almost positive it was in 2021, because I think I bought it right at the end of that year, and then in 2022 this is like one of my favorite palettes all year. I love these colors, I love the mix of the shades. Let's swatch some of these. One shade that I really loved that I didn't think I would, because I don't always gravitate towards blues, but this shade here, Cosmic Love, beautiful, unique, stunning, wonderful. It has a darker base, but then it has a blue, pink, purple shift, and on my eyes it pulls very blue. I did 3 looks 1 palette with this palette as well, and in that, I think my very first look was a 1 shadow look featuring Cosmic Love, and this is just so beautiful. I love it. I also love the shade Abundance. This is, I don't know if it's technically a metallic or just a satin, but this is a really pretty taupey purple color, has a little bit of pink in there, and this is a great all over the lid shade. I just love it. It's more than a satin though. I would say this is probably a metallic now that I'm looking at it. This shade here, Moon Magic, this is super unique as well. This is also kind of like a shifty color. It doesn't have a ton of base pigment, but then it has a blue, purple, pink shift as well. I really like this kind of like as a topper shade or on the inner corner. I love the mattes, I love the shimmer. I don't really do much with this cream shade here, but I will swatch it just so you can kind of see. I think it changes slightly as you break apart more of the there's little pockets of different pigments suspended within this cream base, and so I imagine the more you use it, it'll slightly change depending on what pigment it picks up. But this is what it looks like swatched from my version. It pulls a little bit more pink. I will be honest, I don't think I've ever actually used this in a look. I've always just been too nervous that it'll make my look crease. But maybe if I tried to use it almost like a primer, like if I put this all over my lid and then set it with one of the other shades, like maybe one of the sparkly shades, maybe that'll be cool. I don't know. I haven't really given it a lot of time or thought really, but it's okay. It's different. And also the packaging, it's just stunning. Like it's got that quartz crystal finish, and It's got that beautiful like light reflect in it. Another stunning palette that sort of breaks my heart a little bit because it's discontinued and it's quite old. It's from Tarte. It's the Make Believe in Yourself palette. This is mostly shimmers and they're really beautiful light metallics. They are super, super pigmented. I have hit pan on this shade Marvel, which is a light green. This was in a Pan Those Eyeshadows project, which is why I have pan on it. And these are all just super shifty and beautiful. I love Trance. This is a taupe metallic. And then this one here, Crystal. This is surprising because this is a duochrome. I think both of these shades, Crystal and Pixie, are duochromes. And this one has like a silvery taupe base, but then it has a yellow gold shift and it has a slight little bit of purple in there. It's super unique and pretty. I also really, really like this blue here. Again, I don't reach for a ton of blues, but Mystic, it's like a gray. It has like sort of a charcoal aspect to it. It's cool toned silvery and then blue on top of that. Kind of like metal, but a little bit more blue. And that is a really pretty unique shade too. And it's not so blue that it looks weird on me. I don't use this center shade that much. This is also duochrome. I think it's probably more of like a highlighter. It's just kind of chunky and heavy and powdery. And so I don't even think this would work as a face highlight just because it's so powdery that it almost doesn't, it like powders down any of the shimmer. I know eventually I will have to get rid of it because it's just simply too old, but it still performs really well. It doesn't give me any weird reactions on my eyes or on my skin, so I'm gonna hold on to it for as long as I can. Now for the last leg of my palettes, and that is my Sydney Gray singles. I have the Enduring Love palette, and then I have 8 singles, 4 shimmers, 4 mattes from the line. And I don't use the palette a ton. Like I really love the color story, but I just don't reach for it a ton. There is a dud shade in here, Deanna. This looks like it's gonna be more olive, but it definitely pulls a lot more gray and doesn't really show that olive or that green as much on the lids. I've been reaching for it a ton because Darcy, this pink eyeshadow, is a shade that I use in my eyebrows to make them a little bit more red. I currently have more reddish hair right now, but my natural color is like a darker, dirty blonde. It's very cool toned. And so adding a little bit of this pink shadow to my lids almost to tint it warms it up a little bit and helps it match my hair a little bit better. I really love John here. This is also a metallic green, kind of like a silvery color with a green tint. Super brightening. I wear this a lot on the inner corner. Really, really pretty. Of course, I love Devotion. I really love these sorts of colors. This is super metallic as well, and it's like a gold bronze color. Ruth is also really pretty. For being a dark metallic color, it still very much pulls blue. Like it doesn't turn gray or black on the eyes. It's still got a really beautiful impact. I do have a tutorial from forever ago using the shade. I think I paired it with John and I love it. I don't reach for it that often, but it's really pretty. Same with Elizabeth. This is also a darker metallic that still keeps a lot of its original shade, kind of like a purpley burgundy color. These mattes are really nice to help build the look or start the look. You have a nice mix of cool tones and warmer colors. Robert here is a really beautiful chocolate matte brown. I picked up way too much, so it's a little chunky, a little messy, but that's, I think I just pushed down way too hard. It's a really beautiful, like very neutral chocolate brown color. I did not leave much room for the singles, but I'll quickly go over these. Red Chameleon, this shade right here, is probably one of the most famous singles that I have from their collection. And this is a beautiful duochrome. It's got a reddish brown base and then a turquoise shift. Let me get in the right frame. Love it. I think I tried to pan this in a Pan Those Eyeshadows project, but then I stopped filming for a little bit. I took a little bit of a break last year and I just never really got back to it. This color here, Peace, this is also a really popular one. It's like a silvery taupe with a little bit of purple in it. Really, really pretty. This one, I think this is Keep It Fun. And this is a tealy green metallic. And then this bottom one here is Dive. I think this is a duochrome technically because it has a blue shift and then a green, or it has a blue base and then a green shift. Greeny gold. I'm really getting far up there on my arm. What the heck? I've already got my arm covered in eyeshadow, I might as well swatch these other 4 here. These are the 4 mattes that I own. This is Winter Wonder, Haven, Ivy League, and Predictable. And these are also really pretty. I'm gonna swatch them on this part of my arm. They're probably gonna be a little bit patchy because I have arm hair, so it's probably gonna get in the way of that. But Winter Wonder is super unique because it's really light, but it's very cool toned. And then Haven is kind of like its warmer counterpart. It's like a bubblegum purpley, like a Barbie color. Ivy League is a really, really light khaki green. And then Predictable is a mid-toned, kind of like dusty pink. And I am gonna, now that I think about it, I'm gonna compare it. I'm gonna swatch Darcy, that pink shade from the palette, next to Predictable, just so you can kind of see the difference between the two, in case you have the palette and you're thinking, like, would I want to get the single two? Definitely Darcy pulls more pink, it's more warm, and then Predictable is like a dustier purple. Really pretty. Sydney Grace is a gorgeous formula. A lot of people say that this is like one of their favorite formulas for very good reason. It's another brand that I would consider buying more singles from, just because I really, really love that formula. Wow, look at this. A lot going on. I have made such a mess, but that's okay. This was so much fun. Sometimes you just need to get in there and dig your fingers in your products just to see what you have. I love getting to sit down and talk about these. I love all the palettes that I have. I love the collection that I have. I think I have such a really nice mix of finishes and colors and levels of depth, and I can create a lot of different looks. And I feel like the majority of the shadows that I own do suit me. I'm sort of figuring out what works for me and what doesn't. So yeah, again, any single shadow recommendations, any palette or color stories that you recommend I try, etc. Any of your eyeshadow favorites that you've tried recently, please let me know. I love talking about eyeshadows, and I don't feel like I do it enough. I'm going to try to do more of that this coming year. I hope you enjoyed walking through my eyeshadows with me, but that is everything I have. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for spending some time with me, and I'll see you in my next video.